Adding ice to G Fuel makes it so much better. Hello, fellow interwebbers. Welcome back to Induction Games. I'm your host, a videographer, and this is an exciting time because there are a lot of changes happening in Call of Duty that also relate to changes in multiplayer gaming as a whole. And by the time I'm done with this short pros and cons series, either way, there are a lot of things happening for the better of multiplayer gaming. Let's talk about it. But first, I need you to just check down there and make sure you're subscribed to Induction Games. Hit that little bell icon. We are shooting for 10 million subscribers. We're currently at like 12. Use code Induction, gfuel.com to get 0% off. Because I'm not sponsored by G Fuel, so you really should subscribe and help this channel grow so you can support me on this platform that is getting harder and harder for gamers to create content. What am I doing with my life? Anyways, the top 5 reasons to be excited for Modern Warfare 2019. I'm also going to do a 5 things to be worried about Modern Warfare, so keep an eye out for that video as well. I'm going to sum up everything we know and give, in my opinion, the top 5 things that are either very unique, very exciting, and very refreshing for the Call of Duty genre and as a Call of Duty fan. Number 1, it is a spiritual reimagining. They don't want to call it a reboot. They don't want to call it a prequel or an alternate universe. Actually, an alternate universe is kind of the best way, because what Infinity Ward wanted to do is go back and tell a similar story with a similar feel, but in our now 12 years later from when that game originally came out, a new modern age where so many things have changed, yet violence and death and war and hate and racism haven't changed. And the campaign is said to be a very intense and disturbing campaign, but a very real campaign that goes over some of the moral gray areas of war, and I hope it's going to be really eye-opening to people. Spiritual reboot. That means Infinity Ward is bringing back the good old style of Modern Warfare 1, 2, and 3. There's going to be no jetpacks, no advanced movement, no double jumping and wall running and slide twirl, trick shotting. Old players like me can't stand that kind of thing. Don't get me wrong, I really like the advanced movement in like Advanced Warfare and Titanfall 2. Those games do it really well, but we really wanted it to go back to its roots. Kind of did it with this, but that went too far, and then this is just... That's a whole nother video coming later. The specialists from Black Ops 4 are gone, so no longer do you get to sit in a corner and get a super powerful weapon by only getting points. If you want to succeed and get crazy, awesome, destructive streaks and weapons, you have to work for it. And there's no pick 10. The pick 10 was introduced in Black Ops 2, and I think it's pretty much been like that in every game, but now they're going back to the traditional primary weapon, secondary weapon, tactical, regular boomy grenade, what's the other slot called? And 3 perks. No wild cards, no extra perks, no extra attachments, just 1 attachment per weapon and 3 perks. Oh, wait a second, no. 5 attachments per weapon. Yeah. More on that in point number 3, but no more pick 10. Back to a more classic and an easier to manage custom class system. This feels like Modern Warfare in a new age. Spiritual reboot. Number 2, we have a new engine. As you can see from the gameplay showing here, this game, if you're familiar with Call of Duty, looks great. And every year Call of Duty does a little bit too advanced, like, hey, now this game is really optimized for the new Xbox and PlayStation, so it's rendering in 4K, there's, you know, better graphics here. Little increments, but now Infinity Ward stripped apart the engine, and even though it is still based on the original Call of Duty engine, for the most part, from a coding standpoint, They have rebuilt this engine to be, I think, like 5 times more powerful as far as the amount of 3D geometry it can render. Leaps and bounds in the audio fidelity and audio design of the engine. They're putting in full bullet ballistics, so for the big maps, you can't just pull the trigger and instantly hit someone from across the map. Bullets actually travel, they have velocity, they have weight, and it's going to be crazy. The other one that was really interesting is they actually have created the infrared spectrum baked into the game's lighting engine, so when you use infrared goggles, it's actually working and behaving like infrared does. And if you see some of the night mode gameplay, it's really surreal because it's not just like that green tint that you see in like the old Splinter Cell games and the original Modern Warfare. It's an actual, sorry, I'm thirsty, infrared spectrum. Number 3, guns. Guns. There are a lot of guns in this game. Again, talking about the black sheep that has its own video coming. Black Ops launched with only like 20-something guns total, and the amount of guns in Modern Warfare at launch is insane. I'll have to get an exact number, but there's a lot of guns, a lot of the classics from the original Modern Warfare series, like obviously the M4, the AK-74, the FAL, the P90. And when I mentioned earlier, there's no longer you can put 1 or 2 attachments on and you have to like sacrifice a perk or use a perk just to get a 3rd attachment. There are 5 attachment slots on primary and secondary weapons, and you can use all of them. So the gunsmith is basically could take up its own slot, because the gunsmith itself allows you to put on barrels and grips and sights and different receivers and totally change not just the look of your gun, but the feel of your gun. Now, a lot of these attachments will affect how the gun works, and you can essentially turn an AK-74, throw a long barrel, drum mag, and big stock onto it, and make yourself an RPD. Similarly, you can strip it down, make it a lot lighter and easier to run around and move inside buildings, and make basically an AK-74U. There's going to be like nearly infinite combinations of things you can do to these weapons. You also have weapon perks. So you can have a perk that allows you to load, which basically when you shoot someone, it slows down their heal time. It's really interesting. It's really cool what they're doing with the guns. The guns are your character in first-person shooters. All you see is the gun. So it should be the main focus of customization, and it finally is. It has finally grown to that point where, yes, this is the peak performance of gun customization. Number 4, campaign and Spec Ops. I mentioned the campaign before, number 1, but with... I'm sorry, Black Ops. You have your own video, and it's going to be a positive one as a whole. Please don't be mad at me. Black Ops didn't have a campaign. It's the first Call of Duty to not have a campaign mode. And even though, yeah, they've all been kind of, you know, AAA action movie with less emphasis on story, more emphasis on action, some of them have really good stories with really cool gameplay elements and really cool characters that have become iconic in this COD series. And they're bringing it back. A full campaign is going to be gritty. It's going to be intense, and it's going to be very tactical with all of these new gameplay mechanics. Spec Ops, this is a huge one that only a few Call of Duty YouTubers, Gaming Revolution, I don't know where you get your sources, but thank you for these insane leaks that have started to... You're insane, man. So Spec Ops was introduced in Modern Warfare 2, and it's a bunch of co-op missions that kind of started as the cutting room floor for stuff that didn't make it into the campaign, and they allowed you to go and play it with your friends, try and get high scores, all kinds of challenges and stuff. They're bringing it back. They say that there's going to be post-launch support for this mode, lots of new co-op things to do, and potentially even do like the round-based survival mode that we saw in Modern Warfare 3, and possibly using this huge map, Battle Royale. Not personally excited for, but you never know. Going into rumors of Battle Royale is number 5. And this one is what really caught me off guard with the multiplayer reveal. New modes. Modes that we've never seen in Call of Duty, modes that exist in other franchises that you never would expect to see in Call of Duty, and I'm excited to see that they're finally trying it. So we have 2v2 gunfight. This mode is a fast-paced, single-life, multi-round, competitive mode for settling beef. I feel like that's going to be its main point, kind of like Face Off in Modern Warfare 3, and with the really tactical feel of limited non-regenerating health that you see in Rainbow Six Siege. Then we have a 10v10 mode and a 20v20 that basically plays like Battlefield's Conquest. According to Game Informer, they've actually tested up to 32 versus 32, 64 players, just like Battlefield. If this is to be successful, I think they need to have a communication hierarchy like the squad system in Battlefield, where you have groups of 5 people who can easily communicate and see where each other are at all points, at all times, and really be able to work as a team on these big maps. So it's interesting that they're finally kind of expanding this large-scale warfare that really started with, well, I mean, Battlefield has always been like the large-scale warfare first-person shooter, but now that Treyarch tried a battle royale with 100 players, it was only a matter of time before they started expanding on this large player base game modes. And I realized I forgot a big point. Crossplay is a huge positive and exciting thing about COD 2019. Input-based matchmaking is basically, if you have a controller, you will be playing with other controller players. Crossplay was really made big with Fortnite, where if you're playing on PlayStation or Xbox or PC or mobile, you can play together. It prioritizes your input, so if you're on a PlayStation or Xbox controller, you're going to play with other PlayStation or Xbox controllers. And if you're using a keyboard and mouse, which is apparently going to be supported on the PlayStation and Xbox, if that's your cup of tea, you can you can go into matchmaking with other keyboard players like on PC. And when you have as many new game modes as this game has, I feel like it's going to be really beneficial for really saturating that player base and making it so you can always find a match if you're in a mode and you just can't get matched. For example, if you're a console player and you just want the quickest matchmaking experience, you can say, hey, I'm fine with playing with keyboard and mouse players, and you will open yourself up to all 3 platforms, millions of players, all at once. So in conclusion, I'm very excited for this game. I hope you are excited for this game as well. Keep an eye out for the next video, which will be the 5 reasons to be worried about the new Call of Duty. I'm not a super negative person when it comes to games. I'm hoping that it's constructive criticism. BS needs to be called out when there's BS on the floor. You know what I'm talking about? No, you're not. Anyways, I hope you liked this video. If you did, get that little like button to press, subscribe to Induction Studios, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.